Professor Ubier's house.
Looks pretty creepy. I'd been away from Paris and hadn't seen Nico for nearly 6 months. I wanted to celebrate our reunion, but she had other plans. An appointment with an archaeologist. Something to do with a Mayan stone she came across while researching the story. The guy who answered the door didn't look much like an archaeologist to me. I had a bad feeling about this. I decided to work out how to untie myself before exploring further. It looked like Nico's handbag, but I couldn't reach it from here. I glanced over the books, vaguely hoping to find a copy of How to Deal with Poisonous Spiders While Tied to a Chair. No such luck. But I noticed one corner of the bookcase was supported by a loose block of wood. The bookcase was too big and heavy to move. The bookcase was too big and heavy to move. I thought that I ought to free myself before examining the furniture. I couldn't reach while tied to the chair. The bookcase was too big and heavy to move. The bookcase was too big and heavy to move. The bookcase was too big and heavy to move. I thought that I ought to free myself before examining the furniture. Ubier's book collection was exclusively devoted to South and Central American studies. If I didn't do something soon, Ubier's library would be reduced to ashes. The bookcase was too big and heavy to move. Ubier's books covered anthropological and antiquarian subjects. Ubier's books covered Maybe I'd been a little heavy-handed, but it was a question of survival. Of course, I was still tied to a chair in a burning house with no means of escape. With one mighty bound, our hero was free. Now, I had to deal with that fire. Inside, I found a bottle of tequila. Normally, I didn't drink strong spirits, but today was far from normal. Ew. Disgusting. Not only did the tequila burn like hell, I just managed to stop myself from swallowing the worm. The rope was shredded and no possible use to me. In the drawer was a small decorated pot. I'd drunk enough of that. Highly artistic, but of very little practical use. Nice couple. It was a stylish little canvas number containing a lipstick, a handwritten note, and a pair of nylon panties with a large love heart emblazoned across the front. It occurred to me that Nico's tastes must have really changed while I was away. Well, they could be useful. There was something short, fleshy, and gross on the carpet. It was the worm from the bottle of tequila. That dart was sharper than a mosquito's business end, but this didn't deter me from getting it anyway. I wasn't touching that spider goo. It was a pair of red, lace-trimmed panties decorated with a... I guess I had no business reading the note, but I figured it might give me a clue to what... It was from André Labanau, the history student Nico had known at college. The letter was sentimental mush, and revealed that the exotic lingerie, as he called it, was a gift from him. It gave his telephone number. Labanau figured himself as a rival for Nico's affections, but I couldn't believe that that creep was in the running. It was the letter to Nico from that creep Labanau. Sickening. It was Nico's lipstick. It wasn't my color, and it reminded me of clowns. It was that itsy-bitsy tequila worm. I really must remember to take it out of my pants before I send them to the laundry. I wasn't going to get through those sturdy bars. I wasn't going to touch the box after that spider had been inside it. I wasn't going to touch... The cabinet was locked. There was no pressure in the siphon. I guess it was out of gas. I racked my brains to think of a way to improvise a fire extinguisher. If only I'd stopped for a coffee at the airport. There was no pressure in the siphon. I guess it was out of gas. The door blocked my only means of escape. There was no pressure in the siphon. I guess it was out of gas. The cabinet was locked. As I released the lock, something blew the doors open. I couldn't think of a use for a burst cylinder. That cylinder was hot. I couldn't pick it up with my bare hands. The panties I'd found in Nico's bag were just what I needed to wrap around the hot cylinder. I couldn't think of a use for a burst cylinder. The cabinet was already... I couldn't think of a use for a burst cylinder. It was a small metal cylinder with a valve at one end. The cylinder gave out a faint hiss as the valve opened. What? Now I had one primed up and ready to use extinguisher. With a well-aimed squirt of his soda fountain, our unshakable hero saved the day. Now it was time to start looking for Nico. I couldn't think of a use for a burst cylinder. I wasn't going to burn myself on that red-hot doorknob, and it wasn't the time for subtlety. I'd found a piece of newspaper folded in two. It referred to a forthcoming eclipse of the sun. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be visible from Europe. The best place to view the eclipse would be Mexico. Much as I disliked him, Labano might be my only hope of finding Nico. Hi, Andre?
Who is this?
It's George Stobart, Nico's boyfriend.
Don't you mean ex-boyfriend?
Look, I didn't call you just to pick a fight. I need to talk to you about Nico.
Can't you accept she's just not interested in you?
Listen, Andre, we need to talk. Nico's life depends on it.
Okay. You remember the cafe at Montfaucon?
Sure. Andre? You'd better show, you creep. I felt an irrational urge to wipe my ear. It was locked. The door was locked. I didn't fancy my chances of kicking this door down. It was the newspaper clipping referring to the imminent eclipse. Wrapped inside it was another small piece of paper. It was a bank statement for Ubier's account from an automatic telling machine. The last 5 withdrawals were for large amounts, and all made in Marseille. It was Ubier's bank statement. There was no one else I wanted to call. It was Ubier's bank statement. It was the newspaper clipping referring to the imminent eclipse. It was Ubier's bank statement. The tiny point was only of use for picking small locks. The door was locked. It was locked. The tiny point was only of use for picking small locks. It was locked. There was no one else I wanted to call. I couldn't think of a use for a burst cylinder. The cabinet was already open. I wasn't going to touch the box after that spider had been inside it. The cabinet was already open. I wasn't going to get through those sturdy bars. I'd already ransacked Nico's handbag, and besides which, the color didn't suit me. The bookcase had fallen on its front, making it impossible to reach the books inside. I had no time to sit around. The projecting bracket had served its purpose. There was nothing else I could do with it. It was the letter to Nico from that creep Labano. Sickening. I wasn't convinced that was the right thing to do. It was Ubier's bank statement. That was... I'd better think... Wrong. That would... Not such... No. That was no good. I couldn't think of a use for a burst cylinder. I wasn't going to get through those sturdy bars. It was the letter to Nico from that creep Lab. Sickening. It was a pair of... It was the newspaper clipping. It was Ubier's bank statement. I'd already ransacked, and besides... There was nothing else in the drawer. I'd drunk in... The bookcase was too heavy to lift. Besides, I had more important things to do than shift furniture, saving my neck, for one. The bookcase was too heavy to lift. Besides, I had more important things to do than shift furniture, saving my neck, for one. The pot contained a key. I unlocked the door. I wasn't looking forward to meeting Labino again, but he was my only link with Nico. There was no sign of Labino when I got to the cafe. I decided to order a coffee and wait for him. Oh, garçon. He ignored me. I'm sure it was deliberate. Pardon me, but don't I know you?
Huh?
You were here the day I found the catacombs.
I was? Ah, yes. I remember you.
Yeah. Are you still in the police force?
No, not anymore. I'm a man of leisure. And what brings you back to Paris?
My girlfriend.
What it is to be young and in love. Will you share a bottle of wine with me?
Hey, listen, I'd love to, but I need to keep a clear head.
So my company isn't good enough for you.
Why did you leave the police?
I was forced to retire. The golden handshake. Only in my case, it was more copper than gold.
How come?
I was made a scapegoat to cover up the department's inefficiencies.
Have you ever heard of a Professor Oubier?
No, monsieur. I don't recall the name.
Well, apparently he's an expert on Mayan art and history.
A little out of my field of experience, monsieur. If he'd been a serial killer or a sodomite, I might have been able to help.
Hey, you.
What?
I'd like a cup of coffee if you don't mind.
When I finish serving this gentleman.
What do you make of this dart?
I remember a case where the victim was killed with just such a device. The poison acted in seconds, causing his body to swell up like an inflatable life raft.
What do you make of this news cutting?
Orphanage supplied fast food chain?
No, it's the article above that.
Oh! Total eclipse of the sun. Well, that's very dull in comparison. I don't know anything about eclipses.
Tell me what you make of this note.
From my years of experience, I gained a pretty good insight into handwriting. I'd say that note was written by a compulsive, obsessive type with an Oedipus complex.
Hey, you've got just about everything apart from the ponytail.
Un café.
Thanks. Do you know a guy called André Lobineau?
Oui, I know him. What of it?
Well, I'm supposed to meet him here. Did I miss him?
No, I have not seen him today.
Have you heard of Professor Oubier?
Oui, he married that actress, the little dachshund. They used to come here, the nutty professor and the movie star.
If Oubier's wife was a movie star, how come I never heard of her?
She was big in France. The world doesn't stop at Hollywood. Her stage name was Carol Climax. She died in suspicious circumstances.
How did Oubier's wife die?
I heard he shot her.
And got away with it?
He had a good lawyer and a watertight alibi.
Why would an eminent public figure like Oubier risk everything for murder?
He wouldn't be the first, would he? Besides, people like him always get off.
Do you know that man over there?
I should think so. He's a regular customer.
Look at this. A poisoned dart.
Ah oui, sure.
It's the real thing. Knocked my girlfriend out cold in a matter of seconds.
Romantic. Sounds like a real close relationship you have going.
That's all.
Thank you.
Well, this is a surprise, Georgie.
I wouldn't normally call you, but Nico's in trouble, Andre. Deep trouble. You have to help me find her.
What? What have you dragged her into this time?
It was you that recommended Professor Oubier as an expert on Mayan art. Now his butler has kidnapped her, and he tried to kill me.
Every time she gets involved with you, there is trouble. Walking out on her was the best thing you could do.
My father was dying, damn it. I had no choice.
Well, she soon recovered once she went back to her old friends.
Drop it, Andre. Right now, Nico's in danger, and we have to work together.
So, how can I help?
Nico needed to speak to Oubier about a stone.
Oh, you mean this stone?
So that's what all the trouble's about.
Precisely. Nicole told me to guard it with my life.
Well, it's worth more than that, surely.
Oh, very funny.
What's funny is that your life really is on the line.
What are you talking about?
The stone is a Mayan artifact, dummy, and the guy who kidnapped Nico was from Central America. It was the stone they were after.
Oh my god, you mean I could be in danger too?
What do you suppose the carving on the stone means?
I don't know. I haven't shown it to anyone.
Why don't you just give it to me?
I don't want your death on my conscience, George.
Where did Nico get the stone?
It was sent to her.
From where? Who?
I'm not sure I should tell you.
Oh, you should.
It was something to do with smuggling.
Why didn't Nico take the stone to Oubier?
I don't know. Perhaps she suspected something like this would happen.
If she's been hurt, Andre, I'll break every bone in your body.
No, that's typical of you. Do you think I don't care what happens to Nicole?
It occurred to me that slugs don't have bones to break, but I kept that thought to myself. Tell me about your friend Oubier.
He's more of a professional acquaintance than a friend.
I see. So you don't really know him at all.
No, I don't.
Does Oubier employ a guy from Central America?
Maybe. I don't know.
What do you think this is, Andre?
I don't know.
I'll give you a clue. It's got more backbone than you.
You think you're amusing, don't you?
What can you tell me about this pot?
South or Central American, I'd say. I have a friend who'd be able to tell you more.
Where can I find this guy?
He owns a gallery on the left bank. The Gliese Gallery.
Take a look at this, Andre.
It's a bank statement?
Yeah, Professor Oubier's account. 5 large cash withdrawals in the space of 3 days, all from an automatic teller in Marseille. Suspicious, isn't it?
You're even more crazy than you were before.
See you later.
Goodbye, Georgie.
I've had enough of your games, Kala. Tell me what you've done with my stone.
I thought your business was simply smuggling cocaine, Karzak. Why are you so interested in that stone?
Either you tell me what I want to know, or Pablo here will make you talk.
Okay. Well, I figured someone at the university would be able to help. So I had a word with one of my girlfriends, and she told me her boyfriend was a lecturer. I sent the stone to the Department of Ethnology. You know, I figured it was South American, so... You're not buying this, are you?
That's enough! I don't have time to listen to your mindless prattle. We'll leave you to think it over. Come the morning, you'll be ready to talk.
Do you miss being a gendarme?
Yes, of course I do. When I wore that uniform, I commanded respect. Not anymore.
Nope. Excuse me.
What?
He wouldn't have wanted that. Didn't you try to appeal against your dismissal?
There was no point. It was my word against that of the chief inspector. And he was a close friend of the director of the museum I was supposed to be patrolling.
Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
Excuse me.
What?
Which museum was it you were supposed to be patrolling?
The croon. It wasn't as if anything important was stolen. Just a rusty old tripod.
The tripod I'd returned a few weeks later. Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
I grabbed the flask and was struck by a powerful smell of absinthe, a highly potent and illegal alcoholic drink. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Excuse me.
What?
He wouldn't have wanted that. Ever heard of Carol Climax, the movie star?
Yes, but I don't care for the kind of movie she's made. It's smut like that which has caused the moral decline of the Western world.
Is it true that Carol Climax was murdered by her husband?
First I heard of it. I thought she just retired.
I'm trying to find my girlfriend. She's been kidnapped.
Kidnapped?
Yeah, it was our first day back together after many months.
That's too bad. My God, that's depressing.
Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
It was black, even though I was sure I'd asked for cream. Excuse me.
What?
I'd been looking forward to seeing my girl, but she wanted to rush off to see some professor.
I see. And you think she's having an affair with this professor?
Look, forget it. It doesn't matter. What's that you're drinking?
It's wine.
Excuse me.
What?
I had nothing else I wanted to ask the gendarme. Now I had another lead. I could either go back to Ubier's house or visit the Glee's gallery. I wasn't touching that spider goo. It was the flask of absinthe I'd borrowed from the gendarme. I'd drunk enough of that. I had a choice of destinations. The cafe. The Glee's Gallery had style and class, but very few customers. The pots were protected by a glass case. Hi, girls. What's the joke?
あなたはキレてですね。
Okay, fine. If I wanted to be laughed at, there was always Nico. Are you Mr. Glees, the owner?
Good God, no.
Then I guess that must be him over there, right?
Your powers of deductive reasoning astound me.
Have you heard of Professor Oubier?
Yes, of course.
I was at his house earlier.
If you're going to drop names, you could at least name one worth dropping.
I thought Oubier was a well-respected man.
Why, his last book was nothing but pseudo-intellectual claptrap. The demented ramblings of a drug-dependent has-been.
What's that you're drinking?
I'm not sure, but I have a suspicion it might be urine. Glees can't expect a favorable criticism of his gallery when he serves this muck.
Would you give me your opinion on this pot, sir?
Yes, very rapouche.
Rapouche?
Hideous.
What the hell do you think you're doing? You smashed my pot.
Certainly, it was not only worthless, it was ugly and offensive.
To you, maybe.
Believe me, I was doing you a favor.
I wasn't going to waste any more breath talking to that pompous blimp. Maybe I could turn the situation to my advantage, and at the same time, get my revenge. I'd had enough of talking to that. I didn't think he'd be interested. I didn't think he'd be. I didn't think he'd be interested. I didn't think he'd be interested. It was the letter to Nico from that sickening. I didn't think he'd be interested. I didn't think he'd be interested. I didn't think he'd be interested. It was a pair of red. If I wanted to be laughed at, there was always Nico. The pot had smashed into too many pieces to retrieve. The pot had... I'd like to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind.
Certainly, sir. I'd be most happy to oblige.
You're English?
These days one prefers to think of oneself as European.
Sure. Whatever you say.
And how precisely may one assist you, sir?
What I really wanted to ask you about was a black stone.
A black stone?
Yeah, it's a Mayan artifact, about as big as my hand.
No, sir, one doesn't get much call for black stones. If it's Mayan artifacts you're interested in, I have some rather exquisite pots.
So did I, until that slob smashed it. Have you heard of Professor Oubier?
Of course. His name is synonymous with Mayan art. A number of these artifacts were supplied by Oubier himself.
Do you believe the story that Oubier murdered his wife?
If it was true, who can blame him? She was an opportunist tramp. Well, that's what I heard.
Have you seen any of Oubier's wife's films?
Only one. Believe me, I was appalled, shocked, disgusted, and repulsed.
Well, you sure got your money's worth. Last time I went to the movies, I wasn't even titillated. I suppose you have an import license for these relics?
Of course. But that's not my problem, sir. The professor arranges all the shipping. We simply collect the items from the docks.
Could you tell me which docks Professor Oubier uses to import the artifacts?
Good God, no. I can't possibly reveal my commercial secrets.
Do you get many Central American Indians in here?
No, sir. This is Paris. Central America is several thousand kilometers southwest of here. Straight across the Atlantic Ocean and turn left. You can't miss it.
Well, as it happens, I saw some Central American Indians this very morning.
Tourists, sir. Paris is full of them at this time of year.
There is a gentleman over there who seems to be enjoying your wine.
I can't think why. It was very cheap.
I found this news story referring to a total eclipse of the sun.
Really, sir? Well, fascinating.
I had no possible use for a credit card reader. Spheres in a barren waste. Oh, very profound.
Excuse me, sir.
Uh-huh.
That area is private.
Oh, so I'm not allowed back here?
No, sir.
There was nothing else I wanted to ask the man. I'd had enough of talking to that slob. Excuse me.
What?
I had nothing else I wanted to ask the gendarme. I had no desire to go down into the sewers. I could either go back to Oubier's house. Are you Mr. Glees, the owner?
Good God, no.
Then I guess that must be him over there, right?
Your powers of deductive reasoning astound me.
Have you heard of Professor Oubier?
Yes, of course.
I was at his house earlier.
If you're going to drop names, you could at least name one worth dropping.
I thought Oubier was a well-respected man.
Why, his last book was nothing but pseudo-intellectual claptrap. The demented ramblings of a drug-dependent has-been.
What's that you're drinking?
I'm not sure, but I have a suspicion it might be urine. Glees can't expect a favorable criticism of his gallery when he serves this muck.
I'd like to ask you a few questions if you don't mind.
Certainly, sir. I'd be most happy to oblige.
You're English?
These days one prefers to think of oneself as European.
Sure. Whatever you say.
And how precisely may one assist you, sir?
What I really wanted to ask you about was a black stone.
A black stone?
Yeah,
No, sir. If it's my...
Yeah. Who's that guy?
That's... One has to be so... Lure them...
Well, how come that Lane guy is so rude?
It seems to be a standard requirement for critics.
Well, he doesn't want to talk to me.
If I was you, I'd give him a wide berth, sir.
That suits me. I wouldn't want to get too close to him anyhow. Have you heard of Professor Oubier?
Of course. His name is synonymous with my... A number of these artifacts were supplied by...
Do you believe the story that Oubier murdered his wife?
If it was... She was an
Have you seen any of Oubier's wife's films?
Only one...
Well, last time I suppose...
Of course. The professor...
Could you tell me...
Good God.
Do you get many
No, sir. Central... Straight across...
Well, as...
Tourists, sir.
Lane doesn't...
Lost at nerve. The priest who sold it to me said it was a good year.
I found this news story referring to...
Really, sir?
I'd like your opinion on this pot.
Interesting. Would sir be interested in selling the article?
That depends. How much would you give me for it?
300? Possible 325?
I'll think about it. If I wanted to be There was nothing else Would you give me your opinion on this pot, sir?
Yes. Very rapouche.
Rapouche?
Hideous.
What the hell do you think you're doing? You smashed my pot.
Certainly, it was not only worthless, it was ugly and offensive.
To you, maybe.
Believe me, I was doing you a favor.
I wasn't going to waste any more breath talking to that pompous blimp. Maybe I could turn the situation to my advantage, and at the same time, get my revenge. There was nothing else I wanted to ask the man.
You need anything else?
Care for a shot of absinthe?
Ah, no. I've seen what he can do to a man. Look at him. Just 6 months ago he was a gendarme. Now he's a barely coherent, bombastic fool.
He was like that last time I met him. There's something incubating in the bottom of my cup, garçon.
You asked for it. That's the cream.
But it's all in one lump.
No problem. I'll bring you a fork.
Forget it.
That's all.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
What?
I had nothing else I wanted to ask the... Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
Excuse me.
Leave me alone.
I had no desire to go down into the sewers. I could either go back to Ubier's house or visit the Glee's gallery. There was no one else I wanted to call. I couldn't think of a... The cabinet was already... I had a choice of destinations. I didn't think he'd be interested. I didn't think he'd be interested. I didn't think... I didn't think he'd... I didn't think he'd be... I didn't think he'd... I didn't think he'd... I didn't think he'd be interested. The glass... Rectangles in a desolate landscape, highly cubist. The wasteland. Too minimalistic for too much money. If I wanted to be left... I didn't think he'd be interested in that. There was nothing else I wanted... I didn't think he'd be... I didn't think he'd... There was nothing else I wanted to... Excuse me.
What?
I had nothing else I wanted to ask the gendarme.
You need anything else?
There was nothing I wanted to say to him. That isn't it at all. I'd better think this through.
You need anything else?
The waiter...
That's all.
Thank you.
I had no desire to go down into the sewers. I could either go back to Ubier's house or visit the Glee's gallery. Would you give me your opinion on this pot, sir?
Yes. Very rapouche.
Rapouche?
Hideous.
What the hell do you think you're doing? You smashed my pot.
Certainly, it was not only worthless, it was ugly and offensive.
To you, maybe.
Believe me, I was doing you a favor.
I wasn't going to waste any more breath talking to that pompous blimp. Maybe I could turn the situation to my advantage, and at the same time, get my revenge. I'd had enough of talking to that slob. There was nothing else I wanted to ask the man. The pot had smashed into too many pieces to retrieve. I didn't think he'd be interested. I didn't think he'd be interested. If I wanted to be laughed at, I didn't think he'd be interested. There was nothing else I wanted to... I had no The cabinet was already open. I'd drunk. I had a choice of destinations. The cafe